Your memories are lost, and your life is in danger. Who can you trust? You are, after all, a rogue, a man without a past. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Himvar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Scott Ciencin's EverQuest, The Rogue's Hour. This is a 2004 novel, I believe, and today is the 25th anniversary of EverQuest. So this is a special review for that. I love EverQuest. Okay, I first played it in 2012 or 2013, and I'm just a big fan. Now, I'll get into my thoughts on the book here in a second, but I just thought, since my channel doesn't really focus on gaming at all, that it just deserved a mention, right? I did mention it in my top 10 books of 2023, but still, it deserves a mention here. I love EverQuest. If you haven't played it, you should go play it. Anyways, this is a story presented by R.A. Salvatore, who actually pretty much just wrote the introduction. There's a little bit more to it, but he recounts his first time in the world of Norrath and the wonder-bringing and harrowing experience it was. He says he was actually in charge of the CDS line of EverQuest novels, which didn't get very far as I can tell. There were only ever a handful of them. I think there was 4. He liked the idea of anthologies and even ones written by players, like anthologies of stories by players, which are kind of like telling their gaming experiences in story form. None of those happened, right? I don't know how Salvatore got in charge of that. Maybe it was his Demon War experience. I'm not really sure. He didn't actually pen any of these EverQuest stories either. I had read a couple books by Ciencin before this, though. It's an interesting introduction. It'd be interesting. I'd like a new EverQuest novel. This is my second EverQuest novel, I should say as well. I read The Blood Red Harp, which I didn't really enjoy much. So the story begins with Sizemore the Red and Bully Dutchmar tailing the daughter of a merchant as she walks late in the night in Skull Alley of the city of Kanos. They make sure no guards, vigilante heroes, or members of the Rogues Guild, called the Circle of Unseen Hands, are about before employing a ring that hides the wearer in shadows and the brutal sword fish cutter in their quest to have the way with their girl. The setup is done really well. It feels familiar, but brings the story and the world to life in a beautiful manner. There's a sense of world beyond the 1990s 3D graphics, and Ciencin imbues mystery and unease with great happenings just around the corner. Writing video game novels doesn't always work, so I did very much enjoy the first few pages of this. Shortly, we are introduced to another rogue with a more agreeable appetite. His name is Riley, at least I assume that's how we're supposed to say it. It becomes obvious very early that our main character has no memory from before that day or even the events of that first chapter, falling into the amnesia trope. His past, along with a quest to save the world of Norrath, go hand in hand. The story itself is kind of classic Dungeons & Dragons, but also EverQuest, of course, in fashion, as it involves a party. Bronwyn is one of these characters. She is kind of a mystery, first appearing as an innocent human waif before becoming determined and powerful, if unsure in some areas. The blurb calls her a beautiful, murderous half-elf. Take that as you will. She's an interesting character, which is to say she's intriguing and rather crazy, because I don't really understand her actions. Connor is a barbarian from Cold Hallis. He's only 18. He's great in brawn, but is considered rather stupid. His companion is Ironclaw the Wolf, and Ironclaw seems the more intelligent and therefore the protective figure in the relationship. He is training to be an avatar of the Tribunal and active council of gods of one purpose, justice. Connor can be overcome with rage, and he even gets a very obvious game element in the Spirit of the Wolf spell. So please. And there are other obvious game elements too, though they didn't feel overbearing. Also, my latest EverQuest character is a barbarian shaman, so, Underfoot, first name being Bracken, is a dwarf of legendary status for his battle prowess and exploits. He knows the paladin somehow, which I'll mention in a second. It doesn't actually matter until a bit later into the novel, but the blurb mentions him. In fact, the quest that's supposed to be, the point, as the book says on the back, doesn't actually start until about halfway through. The first part just being set up. And Uldane, who we meet early, is an erudite paladin, battling a sea monster on the Kara Isle, home of the Karens when we meet him. This is a cat-like race that doesn't look as cool as the other EverQuest one, the Vashir. Kind of think Khajiit or Tabaxi, essentially. Uldane is specifically a deep-water knight, protecting those who work on the sea or live near it. This follower of the sea god, Prekis, is hunted by his past, evident in his self-exile from his home city of Eredin. He is given an opportunity to search for a ship from his past, and of course he takes it. Erudites were always an interesting, to say the least, race, seen as they look like sub-Saharan Africans with long heads. Suffice to say that they are descendants of Erud, a great mage from the line of the original Norrath humans. They focus on knowledge, particularly the arcane kind, hence the big heads, since they are big brains, apparently. The evil ones live in Panil and the good in Erudin, both on the continent of Otis. These characters are not the companions of Hall. I was worried they would be since Salvatore did the intro and Ciencin did write Summon Forgotten Realms. They don't do well on their own, right? If one takes on two foes, they likely lose. If they win, it's barely, like in the game, right? It is immediately obvious we will have to worry for the characters as they struggle. That being said, there are cool and impressive things the characters can do. There's another character, Ig, the ogre bounty hunter, who is an ogre, obviously his title, the ogre. He isn't exactly part of the group, but a fine addition to the cast as well. He's clever under the guise of stupidity ogres get stamped with. You do have to wonder what a world with the legitimate occupation of adventurer would be like. I mean, you get curses, you have gods, you have a Dungeons & Dragons array of fantasy races, and a kingdom ruled by King Bale, who you never actually see, but you definitely do see his laws at play, like Hue and Cry, for instance, which I thought was a very fun addition. And there are necromancers, shadow knights, rangers, and so forth. There are blood sabers in their worship of dissolution and disease in Bertoxulus, the god with no allies. We also get hints of a world not in game, similar to Dagger Alley and RuneScape's portrayal of Falador. For example, Connor is from Firafennel, a village in the Everfrost Peaks, but it's not in game. Chitauri, a type of rat folk, make an appearance, and I wonder if they're related to the Ratonga and other ratmen of EverQuest 2. I'm not quite sure. I do think the end is a little contrived, and the amnesia trope isn't the best handled, but it wasn't a complete waste of time, as I did enjoy the mystery and some of the action. It just doesn't come highly recommendable. It's not my favorite Ciencin work, but someone should enjoy this. And I think maybe particularly if you're a fan of EverQuest, right? Like I did enjoy Blood Red Harp, for example. I like vampires. And Kelethin is cool because that's where that one's set in the Fate arc. But not a very enjoyable novel. Otherwise, even though I've read stories by Ciencin I really enjoyed, and I've read stories by Lane Cunningham, for example, who wrote Blood Red Harp that I really enjoyed. But I haven't really enjoyed my two stories set in EverQuest and Norwrath so much, right? And I think that could be remedied. And there are two other EverQuest novels. I'll probably get to them eventually. And I think I'll always think nicely of this one now that I'm putting this video out on the 25th anniversary of EverQuest. And also, I read this, I was finishing this right around the time my son was born. So, good memories. Even if the book isn't the best thing ever. Liam from Liam's Lyceum. I'll catch you next time.